Okay, so I'm just gonna make a continuous video because I can't stand doing cuts, repeats, and trying to make it perfect. It doesn't work out perfect. I need to make mistakes and just be with the mistake instead of doing it over and over again. It doesn't work that way. It just gives me a headache, makes me tired. So I wanted to talk about my first spiritual experience, um, like very profound one that pretty much ended with me in the hospital, a psychiatric hospitalization. Um, and I also wanted to talk about how um, I guess it's hard to put it in order, but I wanted to talk about Hana Pestle because she played a role in my spiritual experience. Um, uh, not like physically as a person, uh, maybe one time though in like reality, running into her at Amtrak station one time. Maybe that has some kind of reason for a connection that existed there. Um, but uh, but yeah, I had my first psychiatric hospitalization in about 2008. Um, it happened coinciding with a water fast, and I did the water fast because I was having like a mental breakdown, which was, from what I understand now, symptoms of mental illness. But it's not quite as simple as just labeling it at that as that. As I remember the experience that led to the water fast, that led to the hospitalization, it was, I don't know what to say. I saw something that is profoundly awesome and kind of you just leaves you with a sense of blank wow stare. And before I was always interested in spirituality and religion. I considered it as something to do in my life as a profession. It was just something I was naturally interested in. Uh, but yeah, that didn't work out, and I just ended up going to school and trying to do like the routine, normal stuff at school. That didn't work out. I was a bit stressed, and there was a situation in school, and in a nutshell, it led to like a hallucination that I perceived at the time as a miracle. And but part of the miracle experience included like a voice, which sounded like it was coming up from like above, like it's almost like a narrator looking down, narrating the situation happening. And the narrator was saying or what I thought of as God or an angel or whatever. What that person was saying was actually pretty mean. It was very much it hurt. It hurt what he was saying, but it was like true. So that didn't mean that it wasn't hurtful. And it really hurt. And actually, after what was said, I just kind of forgot what what just happened. Like I know what I'm experiencing is a wow experience, but I can't remember the content of the experience. And I was just like walking, like kind of in this like blank. I can't think about anything. I don't even like. All I know is wow. Everything else is just forgotten. That was actually really a hard time walking home because I rode my bike to school that night. So I had a night class, and it was. I had like I was going through the park, and I thought I heard a man respond as I was like looking in his direction. He responded to me in a way that I remember thinking, how do you know what I think about you? Because I was feeling like he was suspicious or something like, and he said something relative to that, and it just kind of scared me how he would know what I was feeling. Um, I was just kind of out of it. Walking home, I was hearing like a kid and his dad arguing inside their house as I was leaving my school, and the kid was a really bad argument, something, and then the kid just kind of like redirected the attention to me outside, walking outside of on the sidewalk outside of their front door. He just said I think he was going to get kicked out of his house or something like that, and his the kid said, well, what about him? Like he's Mark, whatever. That's Mark. would you help him if he needed help? It's like, I don't care about anyone else. I was like, I don't even see any windows. How do they know I'm out here walking on the street, on the sidewalk? Like, it just, I mean, I wasn't paying attention like continuously. He could have like looked outside his front door for a second and then, hey, look, that kid's out there walking his bike. Where is he going? I don't know. But yeah, it was, for the most part, it was what I identified as like hearing voices. What I currently identify as hearing voices. Um, so yeah, I don't think I was. I think I actually had stopped taking medication at that point, and it was like 3 months since I'd taken antipsychotic medication. Um, and I kind of stopped abruptly. I thought you were supposed to like taper down a certain way, and I just kind of like took it, stopped taking it, and maybe took it every once in a while. Then I just stopped all of a sudden, and I remember feeling a little bit paranoid around like people in school, like in context of what they thought about me, um, or maybe someone asking me something or trying to start conversation with me, and I'm just kind of so shut down in my like state of mind that I'm just kind of like defensive of everything, and I just kind of like feel bad about everything. That was my experience at school. I didn't really feel good at all about it. Um, but yeah, that ended the next day. I decided to try an alternative way to help myself, and that was what I've been learning online at the time, which was fasting and diet change. Um, so like plant-based diet. Um, but yeah, the fast was something I was interested in for a very long time. Doing a spiritual fast was something that intrigued me for a very long time, and so that was the first time I was going to apply it towards my own like well-being. And so I did it, and after like a day of reducing my calories, reducing the food that I'm eating, just like from a comfortable level, eating only to what I feel comfortable with. And then at like the third day or so, I just kind of like just went all in and no food at all. And but I was feeling like progressively better in those 3 days of caloric restriction. But on the like the fourth day, that was like the mind blowing experience of the spiritual experience that I had. That's part of the water fasting that I was doing. And so it was the first time I had a very profound vision, like during deep meditation. So I commonly practiced meditation throughout my life. Not all the time, but just every once in a while. And but yeah, that time I was putting an effort in meditating every day a little bit, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, just sitting down, sitting still, going outside, doing a whole bunch of different things, getting vitamin D, getting exercise, stimulating my brain, maybe playing some music. And so, yeah, I was doing that for 3 days. I felt much better on the fourth day, though, or like on the third and fourth day, I felt like completely back to myself, like no more, none of this state of like paranoia or none of this state of like, I don't feel so well in my life. I was feeling like back to my normal self. And but that's the point where the fasting turned into like not only bringing me back to a state of normality, like mentally, emotionally, and just like feeling like I'm like home rather than feeling like I'm not in the world anymore. I'm like living in some alternative reality, like hell or something like that. Like actually, that's the thought that was on my mind walking home is like, is this hell? Is this what it's like to be known by people in hell? And so I was really kind of and the hell perception was relating to what the voice had said during the hallucination or the miracle that I had. And I remember now, after the experience ended, I've come to remember a lot of things that were part of like forgotten memories. And yeah, it was pretty harsh what the voice said. Um, but yeah, so during the water fast, back to normal, baseline normal, and then not only back to normal, I started feeling better and like better than I had been feeling for a long time. And it was in such a way that it was like subtle and it was also recognizable. Like I remember this is how I used to feel. Just it feels so like distant. I can't quite put my finger on when did I feel this way? And then and then I started to like remember stuff. Part of the memories came with smell. So like with water fasting, I experienced an acuity of smell. So like for example, I could smell my house, whereas like just living in my house normally, I'm just kind of used to it. But when I first moved into the house, it had a certain odor to it. And I started smelling that odor, that old familiar scent of the house. And it occurred to me that the last time I really smelled the house like that was when I had like the first time period of when I was moving in. And that must have been when I was like 7 years old. And so yeah, the smell of the house became more acute. My thoughts, it became easier to realize things, like realizations just kind of flow without any kind of effort, just kind of have an epiphany, like you're thinking during meditation sitting, just a great realization came to me in that place of stillness and silence. And it was really enlightening to see myself from that perception of myself. And it was very much freeing from my old sense of kind of maybe self-esteem, my range of how I perceive myself and how that affects me emotionally and how I feel it affect others view me. With that profoundly awesome, I don't know, enlightenment of myself, I just felt free. I felt really free in this idea of myself being more than I was able to be conscious of. But now that I am, it's I don't know, but now I am. So it was a nice experience to have that during meditation. So also too, I think the second day of water fasting, the meditations progressed to the point where there's just like the stillness it's very much, I mean, I wouldn't say unfamiliar, but it's because I have experienced similar stillness states of mind like that, but not in that profound way. This new water fasting way was 1,000 times stronger than anything else I've ever experienced, and there was this stillness and just like sitting down and being there with the stillness, with the quiet of mind. And after a period of I would say like 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, I started to have this clarity in my vision. It's almost like starting to see a dream, but I was completely 100% aware, awake, sitting in meditation, and I started having a vision. That's how I interpreted it. It was a vision. And now, like from my now perspective, I've come to realize what maybe the potential meaning of that vision was. But at the time, I was pretty much hospitalized on that day, and I pretty much forgot everything because it was buried over. All the spiritual side of things was buried over with this idea of mental illness, and it really kind of really caused me to forget my side of the story. And so yeah, it was of the vision that I had was. It seems so far away the last time I've talked about this, but the vision was of my grandpa, or not of my grandpa, but of my grandpa's funeral. And I realized that after really taking a close look at the content of the vision, what it meant, or just like, oh yeah, that was what happened in grandpa's funeral. And I felt really bad about being afraid to go up and light a candle for my grandpa. And partly because I was half high in the funeral, because I just thought I would feel better if I connected with people better. But also too, I didn't realize that the being high part was the very reason why I felt responsible for one of my grandpa's hospitalizations. After he saw me in that state, I never have seen my grandpa like that before at the time. That was the first time I ever experienced that kind of conflict between me and my grandpa. And that was much, maybe a few years before everything. But yeah, nevertheless, I felt responsible, and kind of that feeling kind of stuck around. And even like in family parties, when my grandpa wasn't doing so well, like, and he was feeling kind of out of it, and he would look at me and I would look at him, there was still that kind of emotional sense there. And I recognized it. And my grandpa, I could see my grandpa recognize it, but everyone else was like, this is part of his part of his, what's happening right now with his time period in his life and his health. My grandpa was on dialysis for a kidney failure. So yeah, I remember that time when my grandpa came, and like kind of unexpectedly, not really unexpectedly, but I was high from a party. I was actually high that morning from a previous night where just things really happened in the wrong way, and I just woke up kind of feeling really bad and thinking I could smoke a little bit to take the edge off, and it helped. I went back to sleep, and when I woke up, my grandma was in the kitchen dropping off the food, and oh crap, the house is still a mess, and I haven't dumped the trash, and it wasn't such a bad mess, but yeah, I felt a little bit cautious. My dog was in the house too, and my he bit my grandma in the arm, and I woke up to that, and my grandma saying, "Ow, tu Pedro me mordió." Your dog bit me, and so like I had left my dog in the house from the previous night when I just felt like the party was getting out of hand. I just felt like it would maybe, offset some of the tension that was in the party, but it didn't really help at all, as I remember. It was a pretty bad experience for me. Um, Me and my sister actually. So yeah, the vision was of that I had during deep meditation was of my grandpa's funeral, and all those feelings that I was kind of going through at the time that I wasn't fully aware of. I didn't really kind of, connect everything. I was just going through the emotional side of it, the pain side of it. I Because I tried to explain stuff to my dad when during the hospitalization of my grandpa, and that didn't turn out so well. And my dad just didn't believe me at first, but then I just said it flat forward and just as it was, and then he really kind of shut me off, shut me down, and I felt so much worse because I was feeling responsible for my grandpa being in the hospital. No one else knew what had happened between me and my grandpa, uh, and so my dad was just like, I don't want to hear any of that. Just just don't talk about that. And so yeah, I was feeling bad. I was feeling guilty in the hospital. I just felt so like the sense of separation that hurt so bad, like this sense of isolation, like no one's listening, and like I'm responsible, I know it, but then no one, like my dad's not listening, no one's listening, and just like I just have to go through it myself. And I think I vaguely remember just kind of forgetting. I just woke up, I just kind of forgot that it was even something. And so, but yeah, uh, I think that those emotions played a role in the machines not being recalibrated for the next visit my grandpa had, because my assumption was that his stress response was high. I remember him pulling out of the driveway and just driving erratically as he was kind of like shifting gears and just overall like being out of it, and just kind of seeing my grandpa in that state. I think he had a genuine like strong stress response to that situation. And I think that when your kidneys are supposed to be responsible of like, filtering all that stuff out, if you have stress response, also it affects how your blood sugar metabolism and other type of minerals like calcium are processed through your body. And so I just think that maybe my grandpa probably after that stress response situation, that strong, I never had experienced that before with my grandpa type of emotional stress response. I think that might have prompted maybe an earlier or recalibration of the dialysis machine. But that's my assumption. I never really went further into investigating that aspect. Maybe I will, or I'll find more about that later in the future. But yeah, my first vision was basically I'm looking at the front of a church, like I'm sitting, or not really sitting, but just looking at the front of the church. I see the cross there, and it's empty. No one's there, and so the vision is kind of a dream also. But I remember focusing. I seeing this on the right side, seeing a table filled with candles. The candle table just filled with candles. It kind of caught my attention with the flickering of the fire, and my focus shifted onto that. And as I kind of like focused my attention onto that table, Like I couldn't see the fire so clearly or the candles so clearly, and then I just kind of my vision focused, and I just saw three candles that were there, and then I was just kind of staring at those three candles, and after moments pass, it just kind of transitions into one candle, and then no candles. And so that was the vision that I had. It was just kind of looking at the flame like burning. And I remember in the funeral, I was going through a lot of emotional stuff at the time, and I remember I was like the last person out of the church, and I remember the priest as I'm walking towards the priest and kind of he asked me if he said I think he said, I noticed you didn't light a candle. It looks like you're interested in lighting a candle. Would you like to? And I just couldn't really accept, I guess, that he had spoken to me directly like that. I was like, I'm looking down, walking out of the church as I'm kind of high and feeling self conscious and a lot of stuff going through that I'm not even really processing. Just it's coming out as emotion, I guess. And so yeah, I just kind of pretended like he didn't say that. And I remember feeling so bad that and then as I'm leaving the door, he said, I'll just put it out. And so, I remember feeling bad, really bad that had been my experience, that had happened in the hospital. I just remember feeling really bad getting into the car and going back to the, the house for the after a funeral party. Um, So yeah, that was my first vision I ever had, like in my whole life. While I'm deep in meditation, sitting down on my second day of water fasting, and it was like from that experience, it was a profoundly wow, huge wow experience. And so yeah, there was another experience that I had. I think a separate day. I think maybe the first day of the water fasting where I started noticing the room around me with my eyes closed. Like I'm sitting down, meditation, minutes pass, 10 minutes maybe pass. And then it's almost like a dream, starting to see the shades of shadow, like starting to see shadowy objects around my room, like my makeshift coffee table that I have there, my table credenza that's in front of me where I'm sitting down. My To the right of me, I have my turtle tank, and with the turtles are in there. I can see them. I remember looking at my credenza and just looking around like the carpet and just like being like amazed that I'm having this visual experience while in deep meditation. And I remember looking at the credenza or the coffee table. I think it was the coffee table actually, because there's some symbolism there. But I remember looking at the coffee table and seeing a snake just kind of slithering on top of it. And that I know that's not my room. That's not part of my room. But yeah. So after that experience, just like kind of like relaxed and just like gradually as I was coming out of it, the vision started to fade a little bit more, and I couldn't see objects anymore. Just like until it's just black, eyes closed, black, and uh, and so yeah, that was a really awesome experience. And in the hospitalization, that was considered that was defined as a hallucination or hallucinatory experience. But I didn't accept the hospitalization, you know, perspective on things. I came home and I ordered a book on Amazon.com on the topic of astral projection because that was something else I was interested in from learning about like monkhood and stuff like that. And so this idea that you could travel the universe with your mind, with your consciousness, that very much intrigued me. And so, I very much believe that maybe I'll find more answers in that book than, all this nonsense or this chaos that the hospital is trying to push me into prematurely, which is totally taking me out of my wow spiritual experience, huge, never have experienced this kind of thing in my life type of deal. And so yeah, I bought the book. I read the whole book, and exactly what one of the topics that the author was talking about. It's called astral vision or something like that. Described in exact detail what I had experienced about, seeing objects in your immediate surroundings during deep meditation, and that's part of the starting of astral projection and stuff like that. And so I don't know. I've that book is in my shelf somewhere, but yeah, that book was more, it helped me feel better. It helped me like recover from the negative experience that I had in the hospital. Such a terrible experience to feel like you're trapped, like you can't go home, you're stuck there, and everyone else is there in this kind of the same situation. It makes you feel uneasy. The sense of unease is like this continual feeling, and then going to sleep, there's that feeling that's there continually. You can't sleep, and then just like it's a bad experience overall. And the hospital workers are there. They're writing their notes. They look at you for every day. They kind of step out and like they take their notes, and it makes you feel very self-conscious in that environment. And then they ask you questions, and then for me, I'm like totally 100% open to share my wow profound experience. But that was a big mistake, because what ended up happening is everything that was profoundly awesome to me was basically translated into mental illness. And that was the worst feeling that I could ever imagine. Is just this great misunderstanding that I was going through. And then my parents were on board with this idea that the hospital was, sharing or telling them I had. And that experience, having their emotions, I was influencing my emotions. That affected me so profoundly. I remember it just hurt so much to see that, to have that experience happen there. And then they're looking at me in a very critical way, and that by itself affects me emotionally. It's all, the whole entire experience is just, it's too much. It's overwhelming to handle that. And so I don't know what to say. There's a lot of mixture of stuff that I was experiencing overall in that time period in my life. So I don't really know how to put my finger on anything. What is this? What is that? Is this true? Is that true? Just, telling my story, I guess. So yeah, in the hospitalization, I ended up kind of being able to not sneak out, but I guess sneak out. But that's not how I viewed it. I was kind of in this other world at that point, and I just didn't feel good in the hospital. And I just remember closing my eyes and walking the perimeter of the hospital corridor. And I came to stop at the door, and this lady was leaving these double doors. I had my eyes closed the whole entire time for like 10 minutes. And I hear the doors open. I could feel her looking at me, and then for a second, and then she kind of turns back, and then she just kind of walks through the double doors. And I just remember standing there, and the doors are hanging open, and I just remember like this really bad feeling of where I am. I don't feel good at all where I am, but that way it feels free. And I just remember going with that feeling of free. And so I opened up my eyes for a second, and I got into the next corridor, and I immediately closed my eyes. And I just was walking along the edge of the hospital room, the hospital corridor where the handrails are. And I reached this desk where this lady was. And, uh, and, yeah, I reached this desk, and I think it was like a lunch desk or something like that. And she said name and something, and then I just said Mark or something like that, and she wrote my name. She gave me this card, or actually, what I think it was. So like I'm walking up to this desk right there, and as I'm walking very slowly up against the wall, my shoulder hit this timestamp thing, and it made a printout. And then as I walked up to the desk, the lady kind of said name and badge number, and I just said Mark. And she looked at me for a second, and she handed me a paper or whatever, and she said, "Go ahead." And I just went in, and it was just like this community lunchroom area for all the doctors, I imagine. And so, yeah, I was closing my eyes in that room, but I'm not sure. I remember seeing two. I think it might have been the outpatient center too. I'm not sure what it was, but yeah, I think as I was entering into that room, I kind of started having my vision come back, where I could see like the space around me. Not really like in clarity, as it was in my room, but more like maybe like a dream. And when I opened up my eyes, it was not the same place. But yeah, I got to like I closed my eyes again, and I noticed it was just like this round table in the center of the room. And I just kind of walked to that table. I think I actually remember hearing people like move their chairs as I'm kind of walking to that table with my eyes closed, just kind of like ignoring it. Like the whole thing is overwhelming anyways. And I remember seeing a girl sitting at that round table by herself, and I remember seeing how she was sad. She looked sad, and I just felt so bad for her. And so I tried to like sit down at the table that is not really there, but I try to do it anyways. And so I'm kind of like sitting down, and I'm trying to like I'm halfway like sitting down. And there's no chair beneath me, but so I'm just trying to imagine that there's a chair. Maybe that'll make a chair come in or something like that. But yeah, that didn't happen, and so I just kind of I motioned my hand. I moved my hand over to where her hands were, like kind of on the table like this, kind of like in front of her, and or not like I don't remember. Her hands were just kind of on the table, and I just remembered reaching out for her hand, and I at that point, like when I'm reaching out, I remember I didn't see anything. Like my vision just faded to black. It was all black, and I'm just kind of like reaching out in that direction. I don't feel her hand. I'm still kind of searching for it, and then all of a sudden, I feel a hand go like this on my hand, and so yeah, it was like completely dark when that happened, uh, and no vision. I mean, vision. When I mean vision, it's like things aren't like bright or colorful. It's more like this black kind of dark field kind of image of a vision, which was like the first vision I had, not like the second vision I had of my grandpa or of the church and the candles. Uh, and so yeah, that happened in the hospital, and so I had completely forgotten my psychiatric hospitalization, or that I had completely forgotten that that was part of my psychiatric hospitalization. After a few months, I just had forgotten. For a few years, maybe not a few years, like maybe a year, I just completely forgot it. I was 100% on medication, and just all the spiritual side of things was kind of like already kind of left behind a bit. And but I watched this movie, and this movie was called. I watched two movies at the same time. I think it was the first Twilight and then the second Twilight. I think I watched it on HBO or something like that. And so yeah, I watched those movies. The first one was so great. I felt like there was there was a there was a component or a narrative of that movie that I felt strongly related. That I felt that I felt I strongly related with, and it was all kind of relating to the spiritual side of things. This idea that no one really believes in that kind of stuff. It's kind of like if you're a vampire, you live in isolation, the world doesn't know it. It's kind of you're on your own. That part of the story very much was relatable from my experience of that I was going through the spiritual experience being perceived as mental illness. No one's believing it. I'm kind of left in isolation. It's a wow experience. So yeah, I don't know. There was a lot to that movie, a lot more than just the components. I liked the movie in general. Just really kept my focus, and it very much was relatable to me on a very interpersonal level. And so I remember the very ending of the movie, the second movie that I watched, the first song that came on, that is what really kind of like cranked up the emotional aspect of that movie. And that song that came on in the credits was by the song by Hana Pestle called the song titled Need. And so that was playing on the ending credits, and like as I'm listening to this movie, or as I'm listening to the song, I start remembering, like I just remembered something. I just remembered something big. Like I can't quite think about it entirely, but I just remembered something. And then like the song is still playing, and then I remember something else that was not quite the same, is a little bit different, but then I can't quite kind of put my hand on what exactly I remembered, because it's a memory that comes in an instant, and then it just like that's all I have. I just have one instance of remembering it, and then marching down and marching to the future. Um, so yeah, the much later on, I was able to kind of come back to those kind of thoughts or those experiences in my life that I had, and I was able to identify, oh, the song is Need by Hana Pestle. And Hana Pestle, that name sounds familiar. I think actually the name on the credits was familiar. And I think that's what kind of, because I had another spiritual experience, or maybe a mystical, or I don't know how to define it, but I had another experience that involved Hannah from the Amtrak train station, uh, and that's a whole nother story. But yeah, in a nutshell, I encountered someone, not encountered, so I noticed someone walking into the Amtrak station, and she was carrying her guitar, and she was dressed a certain way that caught my attention, and also to her physical appearance caught my attention, and just kind of like reminded me of my ex-girlfriend, a bad experience that I had with my ex-girlfriend. Kind of brought up those feelings, and just like I kind of like almost project, not intentionally, but those feelings were projected onto her like uncontrollably. And but yeah, I just remember like I had been manic, maybe a little bit in a state of mania from being awake all night before. And but yeah, she caught my attention. She was talking, partly she was talking pretty loud too. But yeah, she caught my attention, and then I just, part of it was her name, and other parts of it was the whole entire thing was part. There's a lot of different parts of why she caught my attention. But yeah, I felt strongly. I remember just thinking, wow, she's really pretty, and it's feeling strongly compelled to at least say something. And so I was in my church band at the time. I was playing some music a little bit, and so I thought maybe I could talk about music or whatever. And but just like didn't feel it, and so I didn't know anything to say. And the only thing that I could think of was to say the name Hannah, because she was having a conversation with her friend that she was walking with. On For a second, I heard her friend ask her a question about her name. How do you say her name? And I heard that, and I just, that kind of left me like I'm holding this book, and I'm going with my family to the Louvre Museum in Rome in Italy, and I have this book called Da Vinci Code. I'm reading it. It's a topic on spirituality. There's a movie titled Da Vinci Code, and the main character's name, one of the main characters' names is Hannah. And I'll like the second time reading the book, I always try to read it with like an English accent, just to kind of, practice my English, I guess, more my British accent. And so yeah, I was like constantly saying Hannah, like every time I would run into that name in the book, and I just wanted to make it like automatic even. And so yeah, I just, the only thing I could think of to say was just Hannah. So I said it, and the way that it came out though, it was in context of her conversation that she was having, and so it almost was like I was making fun of her, or like being, I don't know what's the word. I don't know the word. I'm just randomly choose the word derogatory, and it was kind of maybe a little bit insulting or intrusive. I think might have been the word, like intrusive, like you just told your friend to pronounce your name this way, and I'm pronouncing it the other way, a bit insulting. And so yeah, I remember she paused for a second, and her friend said, she's between her and her friend, she said something about, did I just hear that? Did he just say that? Did he just say that? And her friend was like, yep, he just said that. And then all of a sudden, like I'm like the target of, no, you didn't just, you didn't just put me down like that. And so like I just felt so bad. I was feeling so bad. So like she said, like straight, she looked at me straight at me, and I remember looking at her for a second, and I think I don't even remember that, but I just remember like she looked straight at me and she said Hana, and I just immediately like cracked, and I just said, repeated it how she said it. And so yeah, so there's a bit of like I'm feeling guilty, and it's like that's not what I intended. And but yeah, I was the focus of the conversation for a second. I felt so bad that like they were preceding me in this way. And and that's kind of where the spiritual experience started to happen. And it was basically like, it was like my focus on their conversation like stuck. It was like my mind just stuck focus on it. And as they're walking further away to their seat, somewhere far away, on the other side of the Amtrak's arrival or departures area, I just remember like I'm still in their conversation. I still can like with this amazing I just have this acute focus on their conversation. I don't know how to put it. It felt like supernatural. It felt like super hearing powers actually, and I remember feeling amazed at that, and I tried to like say some of the things that I was overhearing or that I was hearing from afar. I was trying to say those things really loud to try to catch their attention and try to say, "Hey, look, I could hear what you're saying from all the way over here. I'm amazed at it. Maybe you'll be amazed that you're like hearing me say that." And so that's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to share my wow experience that I was having with them from far away. And so yeah, my mom was sitting next to me, and I was just trying to figure out ways how to say certain things to catch their attention. But I think I just started like repeating stuff, and my mom's not really listening to me at that point. Um, and so yeah, I remember getting up and walking to my departure area to my train, and as I'm like kind of curious where to see where they sat, I think they moved. I think they actually moved to a further away seat because they might have been too close to me or whatever. And so, but yeah, I think I just kind of was looking around for them, and then at the last second, as I'm about to leave, I noticed them, and I just kind of look at one of the girls and just felt so bad. And I think I looked at Hannah first, and then I looked at her friend, and her friend said, "Don't look at me, look at her." And I just remember looking at her, and I couldn't believe that she was saying basically emotionally, like I couldn't believe the emotion that I was getting as a response from her. And I just remember feeling like I can't, like I'm just like turning away and continuing walking on, like I don't even know what's happening. And so yeah, a few blocks and walking distance away, I remember kind of I'm recalling, I'm like kind of thinking about everything, processing everything that's just happened. I'm taking medication at the time, and so my watch rings and it's time for my medication. And then I just remember looking at my watch, my Nike watch, and just saying to myself, "It's time for medication." And all the while, I'm thinking to myself, contemplating, these spiritual experiences that I'm having that I don't want to wish away. Like, I'm not in that state of mind where I'm ready to wish away these spiritual experiences. These are awesome experiences that I very much want to have, that are part of my my aspirations that I have in my life to experiencing things of a spiritual nature, or maybe religion, or, being a Buddhist monk and practicing transcendental meditation, or, maybe astral projection, or being able to travel, the world or the universe with my mind, with my consciousness. All these things are very much intriguing for me. And, I'm taking this medication, under this idea that I want to feel better, but at the same time, it's kind of counterproductive to what I truly want. And so in that moment of saying to myself, I need to take medication, I'm kind of contemplating, I don't think in my mind, in the back of my mind, I'm contemplating, I don't want to take medication. I don't think this is good for my sense of self and my sense of self. What am I telling my sense of self by taking this medication that's taking away these experiences that I'm not ready. Like, I don't want them to go away. At least not at that point. I'm not ready for them to go away at that point. So yeah, when I said that though, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking stuff too. When I said it's time to take medication, I hear a voice respond in my mind, like mentally, and it was her voice, and she said, something like, why do you need to take medication? I don't want to take medication, or I forgot exactly what the words. I forgot what words were said, but it was pretty much like how it felt to me. It felt like a misunderstanding. Like she thought I was gonna take medication, and she's trying to tell me not to, which is typical of like voices. They usually do that in general. But that feels bad to kind of fast forward and to that kind of perspective. It really hurts. And so I like to kind of stay where I am emotionally and that feels better. It's not like I don't want to abuse myself by putting myself in emotions that I don't. What purpose does it serve me to feel or to think a certain way? I don't have to think it. It's just already there. And so yeah, I just remember feeling bad that she was like thinking that I was going to take medication and trying to say no, not to take medication, and that's what I was thinking. But I guess as a voice mentally in my head, all she heard was my mental voice say, "It's time to take medication." And so yeah, that was my first voice ever that I ever recall having, which happened at the Amtrak station that one time long ago. I think it was 2007 when it happened. 2007, yeah, before my first psychiatric hospitalization, and so yeah, so that was the first time I encountered Hana from. I guess that was the first time I encountered a Hana in my life, and watching the movie reminded me of that experience very vaguely, very briefly reminded me of that wow experience I had at the Amtrak station. So not only did the movie or Hannah's song remind me of the the um, the vision that I was having in the hospital, I was trying to escape, or I guess in a nutshell, not really, but the hand there and trying to reach for it, and then I feel a hand go on top of my hand. Her song reminded me of that, but also reminded me of the Amtrak station, and that's like that was really big because that was basically 1 year into psychiatric medication where I was kind of like already starting to lose touch with some of these experiences that I was having. They're kind of slipping further and further away, and I couldn't. They're less tangible, harder to think about, and just more unrecognizable in general outside of my narrative that was, my predominant life narrative. And so, yeah, it was kind of like almost like a bridge a little bit of like holding on a little bit more. And so, yeah, that was what Hannah, in context of hearing a voice in my head throughout, not just, those times I'm talking about, or that time that I'm talking about, but throughout my experience overall. Um, at least not it's complicated. So a little bit in the beginning, maybe a day or two or three or so of her presence there, or at least that's my assumption now is, hey, maybe that's really happening. um, and so, but yeah, later on too, there was a lot of like difficult stuff that was part of the experience too, a lot of emotionally challenging things that were just kind of really difficult for me to go through. I was processing a lot of different things at the time, going through hospitalizations and stuff. And so yeah, um, so yeah, I guess that's a pretty long, 48-minute long conversation here. I really just wanted to make this video and just kind of make it focus on Hannah because that means a lot to me. I really kind of feel like I should put more content out there, but I just never do. Kind of afraid of it because of kind of the implications of it and maybe some of the consequences that might exist from it. And so yeah, overall, I don't feel comfortable putting out this kind of stuff, but I thought I should. And so yeah, that's the emotional drive for making this video. But it's this my personal stuff, and so yeah, it feels good talking about that stuff as well. Um, yeah. So Hana Pestle Mead, that song, that song really stuck with me. Hannah's name really stuck with me too from that one incident, and I'm pretty sure that was really her because I guess that was the place that she frequents. At least that when I was investigating it a little bit, I was curious to see, hey, I wonder if Hannah actually rents an apartment there. And I don't remember how I figured it out, but I was able to figure out that she actually rents in this area. And it was right next to the Amtrak station. And, that's kind of stuff that I don't feel really comfortable talking about. But yeah, that kind of is another, in my investigations, something else that just kind of said, hey, that she frequently is at the Amtrak station. And, that is, maybe why I encountered her there, because that's just where she was frequently. Um, I don't know though. Uh, so yeah, um, so yeah, that was a long time ago. That was back when I was investigating that further into this topic, pretty much in probably like 2013 when I really started to be able to think about it a little bit more. After I kind of started transitioning off of medication-based treatment and kind of heading towards water fasting, occasional water fasting, but primarily focused with diet change and lifestyle change, which is basically what I always wanted. Um, Before even getting diagnosed with mental illness, I always wanted those things. And so yeah, uh, it's really hot in my room, and